Hello everyone, it's time for another live look at the astrology. My name is Katie Sweetman and this is May 26th through June 1st, 2025. This is Beach House Internet, so I can't really tell you if it's going to keep, just a little technical point, if the connection is going to stay. But if it doesn't stay, don't worry, it's still going to record and I will post it. But we have a Gemini new moon today. This new moon is occurring at 6 degrees of Gemini later this evening, so 11:03 p.m. Eastern. I believe that's 9:03 Pacific. And this new moon, just like all new moons, is a time to reset. The page turns and we focus on a new sign, a new archetype, and then we sort of pull from all the different planets depending on where they are. The first four signs of the zodiac really talk about the building blocks of life. And Gemini, which is the third sign of the zodiac, talks about voice and communication, but in reality, it goes a little bit deeper than that because we need Gemini to help us to move, to try new things, to circulate, to sort of take the energies of Taurus and to put them into exchange and connection. If Taurus is our senses in the most rawest sense of the way, then Gemini helps us to actually make information and from our senses. So Gemini also brings us into the duality of life. It is the sign of the twins. This is a duality that you will see throughout the zodiac in different ways, especially getting into Pisces, which is the ultimate duality of life. But that said, we are in the first four signs of the zodiac, at least this time of year. It's a time to get back to basics. And like I know it's a holiday in the United States, at least, like a lot of people are traveling, exploring, and moving. And certainly it is the season to do so. So before I get too far along, just want to reintroduce myself. My name is Katie Sweetman, and we gather live every week to look at the astrology. You hear me say it every week. The astrology is 50%. You are the other 50%. And so if you know that it is a Gemini new moon, what do you do with it? How do you work with its energies? Do you take classes or take a class over the next 4 weeks? Do you pay attention more to how you think and how you listen and how you learn, how you communicate? Do you make different choices? Or in the fact that we have Mercury now in Gemini and we have Jupiter also in Gemini, there is this energy, at least into about the second week of June, that is really about movement and exploration and trying new things. And that's part of the spirit of Mercury in Gemini, but it's Mercury in Gemini also with Jupiter in Gemini. Jupiter, as you may or may not know, has been in Gemini since I think it's May 25th of 2024, so just a year. And on June 29th, Jupiter will leave Gemini, not to return for another 11 years, and it will go into Cancer. But for the moment, we can pull upon Jupiter's energy. Jupiter, I love Jupiter. Jupiter, I know you hear me say that I love Saturn. Of course, I love Saturn. I also love Jupiter because without Jupiter, we wouldn't want more. I don't mean this as a concept of like more in terms of materials or money. Of course, those things are nice, but Jupiter helps us to expand our horizons, to look out into the world, to want more out of life, to grow, to seek, to explore, to on one hand educate ourselves, on another that sense of seeking and exploring can be getting on a plane, going to other places in the world, all to sort of find something. If you know somebody who's got a very strong Jupiter in their chart, or they're Sagittarius or even a Pisces, they are a natural seeker and explorer. I need to fix this camera. There we go. Like I said, Beach House Internet. So yeah, I love Jupiter because Jupiter helps us to get outside our comfort zone. Classically speaking, Jupiter is not at home in Gemini, because Jupiter is in the sign of its detriment, in the sign that is opposite of its sign that it rules. And when a planet is in its detriment, classically speaking, it can't work in the way or has to go against its instinctual nature. Jupiter is typically a planet that helps us to find answers. It's debatable if it's like the answer. Sometimes a very strong Jupiter has opinions and thinks that has all the answers. But this has been, to go back to Jupiter arriving in Gemini almost exactly a year ago, it's a time where we need to see things from different perspectives. We need to get back to basics. Jupiter is not in Sagittarius, the sign that rules. It's in the sign that is opposite, Gemini. Gemini is more elementary, meaning in the sense it's sort of the ABCs and learning and reading and writing. But Jupiter in Sagittarius would be the degree, the higher education, metaphorically speaking, and sometimes literally speaking. So how do we, when we look back, especially as this new moon in Gemini brings us into the final moments of Jupiter in Gemini, not to return for another 11 years, what have we discovered? What have we learned? Have we opened up our eyes, our perspectives? Have we tried to listen, speak, communicate differently? Everybody, of course, is going to live that time in their own way. This new moon is important for a few reasons. It is the new moon that takes us to the midpoint of the eclipses. This is something that I talk about from time to time. I talk about it because it's totally a thing. I see it every year, that the month that is the lunar month, that is 3 months after the eclipses and 3 months before the eclipses, it tends to be a focal point for the eclipse energy. We had eclipses last March. This was a lunar eclipse on March the 14th. This was at 25 degrees of Pisces. And then we had the Aries new moon almost to the beginning of April. This was the Aries new moon solar eclipse of March 29th of 2025. So the midpoint of those eclipses is June. But this eclipse, this new moon today, later today, is really bringing us into a lunar month where we may see eclipse energy, especially if we are a Virgo, a Pisces, or perhaps even a Sag or a Gemini. It becomes a month where the eclipse energy comes in. It sort of reaches its manifestation. We do have eclipses in September. This is something that we'll periodically keep talking about, especially as we get closer. This will be a lunar eclipse on September 7th and a solar eclipse on September 21st, I believe. So pay attention to June. June being this potential focal point, June being, of course, Gemini season, but this new moon, even though it's kind of wide, is square the nodes. Anything that's square the nodes, even it's a new moon or even the full moon that I think is on June 13th or so, that's the full moon in Sagittarius, I think it's at 20 degrees, it is a new or full moon that activates the energy of the nodes and the eclipses. And so the new or full moon can really bring the energy, this energy of manifestation of the eclipses during the lunar month, or in this case in June. We're at a crossroads, we're at a turning point. But then to go back to Jupiter, just to go back to the Gemini new moon and what Gemini season is generally all about, it's a time to gain new perspective. It's a time to look at our options. Options are great until we need to look at it a little bit more deeply and have some foresight with our options, to be able to have the wisdom and the knowledge to be able to choose the thing that is right for us. So when I did my report for the Gemini new moon today, I talked about options. So as we go into June, yes, it is about a crossroads or a turning point, but also one where we may have to look at our options. The Gemini energy, one of the manifestations or facets of Gemini energy, I have a Gemini moon, by the way, always makes me think of the Seven of Cups in the tarot. I'm not a tarot expert, but what I take from that imagery, it's a figure that's looking at 7 cups and it needs to choose one. So how do we choose wisely? And that might be just something to reflect on as we go over the next few weeks. This new moon, in a way, it is in advance of Uranus going into Gemini. I'm getting ahead of things, but Uranus is going to go into Gemini on July 7th. Uranus has not been in Gemini since the 1940s. It's a whole other conversation for another time, but it is, for I think, advantageous to reflect on what Gemini means for us. Like, what is our relationship with the energy and archetype? I'm quiet. I'm not quiet. I'm curious. I'm not curious. I have beliefs and opinions. I don't have beliefs and opinions. Gemini doesn't just need to speak and communicate, but it needs to try new things. It needs that curiosity. So how do we bring that into our life? But also, wherever Gemini is in our personal astrology, when we go through each of the 12 zodiac signs, we'll talk about where Gemini is for you. That area, Uranus is going to come in July 7th until I think about November 7th, and it activates, it animates. It brings the energy of reinvention, freedom, breaking from the past. All you have to do is talk to your Taurus friends, or talk to even your Aries friends who had Uranus go through their sign 2010 to 2018-19. That's Uranus in Aries. 2018-19 to 2025-2026. That's Uranus in Taurus. This new moon, it has a lot of sort of big vision to it, and I think in a way it gains support from Saturn newly in Aries. So we talked about this last week, but yeah, Saturn crossed signs. Saturn went from 29 degrees of Pisces last week, and now it is in Aries. It has not been in Aries since April of 1996 all the way to the end of February of 1999. So different times of our lives, if you were even alive then. So for me, Saturn is such an important planet because it talks about the time of our life. Wherever Saturn is pointing, so translation, wherever Aries is in your astrology, that area takes priority. We have something to learn, we have something to work on, but Saturn also talks about the major milestones of our life. There's something to build, there's something to become in this space. It could be a major relationship, it could be the start of a family, it could be a move, it could be a change in your career. It really depends on who you are and also what time you are in your life. So Saturn is now in Aries, and it gives support to the Gemini new moon. And Saturn, from the perspective of Gemini, is in something called the 11th sign of Gemini, Aries. And so we take the energy of Saturn with us over the next 4 weeks, and Saturn is saying to look towards the future. What are your hopes, your dreams, and your wishes? How do you vision your future? Who do you want as a part of your future? What are your ambitions? And there is that sense of vision with Saturn in the 11th sign of Gemini. It could be a time to reconsider, especially over the next 4 weeks, who are our friends, who are like the community that we want to invest our time in, the people that we want to connect to. But generally, we have Saturn in a supportive or positive angle to the new moon. So you can use the next 4 weeks to not only gain new perspective, but to open up your options, because that might help you to vision a new future. When I'm working with clients, I will often use what I call the magic wand question. I'm like, I'm an astrologer, I have a magic wand. If I had a magic wand, of course I do, what would you choose? And you'd be surprised how sometimes a very simple question such as that can cause people to go into silence. I get it, we're all human beings. It's not just to choose something crazy, but this is to sort of give a little bit of a temperature read of where we're at, because when we're not sure, it's hard for us to create, or at least to work towards creating our future. So if Gemini is options, the positive side of the options of Gemini is it gets us out of a narrow focus that is symbolized by Taurus. Taurus on one hand, I love Taurus, I'm not digging on Taurus, but Taurus on one hand is, there's no way that can happen. I need to do this because this is stable and reliable. I will never argue against stable and reliable, but sometimes we get stuck. So use this energy of the Gemini New Moon to look beyond your circumstances, even if, and probably for really good reason, there are certain things that are immutable. They can't change. It's my doggy. So if it means that you vision with the magic wand, you're like, I'm going to take away time and sort of the commitments that I have that I can't change. And what would my life look like if I sort of took away these constraints? And that could be a way in which you play with the Gemini energy of this new moon, and even playing with the Gemini archetype. It's my doggy. And then we have Saturn helping us to at least create a structure, a practice, a vision, and something to really to follow through over the coming months. Speaking of Saturn and Aries, yes, it's in a new sign. I did a whole webinar last Wednesday night. This webinar ended up being 3.5 hours, but that's just because it's about an hour and 25 minutes of presentation about really important information about Saturn, why I love Saturn, why you should love Saturn, and how Saturn is really marking the chapters of our life, and how Saturn, we need Saturn to help us to build the time of our life. And it's like Saturn is leading us into a new room, a symbolic room of our life. It could be the room of career, it could be the room of relationships, it could be the room of health and wellness. For example, how will you use, this is the part that's 50% you, how will you use this time over the next couple of years? Because Saturn, it will go back into Pisces on September 1st, but Saturn will go back into Aries on February 13th, and it will be there until the beginning of 2028. That's quite a while. It's typical 2-3 years for Saturn to sign, but it really shows what is a priority in our life right now. So I did that webinar. If you missed it, you can still get the replay. Really, really good information. I think it turned out really well. It does have a sign-by-sign guide, so you can listen for what this means for you. Because I had a client sort of say to me, like, I need like a map. I need like a big picture map. And I'm like, I'm your girl. Like, that's what I do. I help to use the chart as a map, because you, everybody that's listening, you have your own map that's highly calibrated to your own life. You need your birth time, unfortunately, which I realize sometimes that's not everybody has their birth time, but that birth date, birth time, birthplace gives me, the astrologer, the address to your life. What do we find at the address? What is the shape of your life? What is the meaning and purpose of your life? Anyway, so you can go to my show notes. You can go to my website, empoweringastrology.com. You can get the webinar for Saturn and Aries. And also, I am doing a weekend intensive on something called energetic sciences. I've been talking about this off and on for the last couple of months. It's something that I do parallel to the astrology, but this is the part that talks about energy and consciousness, and something specifically called the weft, which is the sixth element. So in this weekend intensive, especially for those that feel energy and very sensitive to energy, this helps to give like a structure and a grounding. And I'm doing this for a school in Switzerland called Mercia Academy. And so this is a work that I have been learning for the last 10 years, but have been teaching since 2018, and I get to share it with you all. So link are in the show notes. You can also watch an hour free presentation on what this is, about energy and consciousness and what the weft is. So let's go through each of the 12 zodiac signs, because we just had this Gemini New Moon. I feel like I had something else I wanted to mention. Sorry, I'm on my laptop. It's not like it's like it normally is for me. Yeah, so there you go. Let's look at each of the 12 zodiac signs. I realize it's a holiday here in the United States. I almost pre-recorded this, but I decided to roll the dice with not the best internet, but so far so good. So let's start with Aries. Aries, so Mars is your planet, and Mars is actually starting to get to not quite the end of its time in Leo, but it has been a long time of Mars in Leo, because Mars first went into Leo, I think it was the 1st of November. So that's about 6 months at this point. Mars won't change signs till the middle of June. I think like the 17th of June. But this says that this has just been a very long time for you to focus on themes around identity and self. Who are you? There is a persona that we have, but there is that real sense of who we are. And that really comes out when we do the things that we love that light us up and give us joy. The shift that's on the horizon when when Mars goes into Virgo in the middle of June is that it will be 5-6 weeks. This will take you into August of focusing on health and wellness, work, and projects. So enjoy in the meantime. But that said, it's a Gemini new moon, and Gemini is something called your third sign. The third sign is the sign of voice, communication, how you think and listen and learn. And the third sign helps us to find our curiosities. So the past lunar month, we had a Taurus new moon a month ago. That time was very much focused on money and income, material stability and security, but also self-worth and value. So this new moon turns the page and it says that it's time to focus on your voice. Maybe literally, that's a literal thing over the next 4 weeks. It's not just about speaking more, it's going back to Mars and Leo. It's making sure that your words are your words. Do not be a cover artist in your own life. For some Aries or Aries rising, it's a 4 weeks lunar month, Gemini lunar month of curiosity, trying new things, getting on the move, getting on the go. Maybe you need that. Maybe you have felt stuck or stagnant. I know you just had Saturn go into Aries, so there's a sense of, whether you realize this or not, you're at the beginning of some big new chapter in your life. So maybe that's going back to Gemini, trying new things, seeing what works, getting that sense of curiosity and feeling a sense of openness and new vision about this new chapter that you're going into. Jupiter's here as well. It could be the next 4 weeks. There could be travel. There could be big trips. There could be exploration. If you are a writer, it's a good time to get your ideas out there, to start a manuscript. And for some of you, especially if you teach education, you might be teaching classes, taking more classes over the coming next 4 weeks. But that said, especially again with Saturn in Aries, it is the big start of a new chapter of your life. So sort of use your open eyes and sort of that childlike wonder of something new in your life to maybe just re-envision a lot of things, because the idea with Saturn having come to the end of Pisces, it was to have left behind the past so that you can step into something new. Taurus. So Venus is your planet, and Venus, at least for this week, is still in Aries. So it's been a little bit muted or behind the scenes, or a time for you to rest, reflect. Maybe you've needed to just make sure you're taking your vitamins or getting more rest. Sometimes when our planet, our ruling planet is in the 12th, we can even not have as much energy. I feel like I know a few Tauruses that have just been like a little bit under the weather. But the idea is that this has been a time for you to rest, because when Venus goes into Taurus next week, it brings a sense of renewal and new beginning to your personal astrology. Venus has not been in Taurus, for a year, for example. So your quote unquote rebirth, that's next week. But that said, I know it's not your birthday season anymore, but the energy of the season is now Gemini. And Gemini is something called your second sign. It sort of puts a little spotlight on themes that are already very Taurian in nature: money, income, material stability, and security. Typically a Taurus, I realize this is not everybody, but Taurus loves to gather. It loves everything. Sometimes it collects. It has that connection to the material plane. It wants to gather resources or tchotchkes. But with the Gemini season, Gemini New Moon, this next 4 weeks could be very financial in nature. And even with that that Sagittarius full moon in 2 weeks, That's going to put another spotlight on money, income, finance, mortgages, property, assets, financial plans, debts, taxes. This is the part of the chart that really gets into sort of the material nitty-gritty of life. If it's not literally money and income, it could be getting into themes about value and worth. Like, what do I spend my time and my money on? Is this really of value and worth to me? What is my value and worth? And perhaps how does that have an impact on the things that I spend my time doing, or how I reflect, or how I feel about myself? But in general, this new moon, it gets into themes that are both material, but also, I would even say, spiritual, because our physical lives, of course, we need to keep the lights on, we need to pay the bills. But I think with Saturn having gone into your 12th just last week, you're getting into a time that is talking about the things that you still carry with you. Maybe that's literal, it's material, but even the emotional and spiritual things that you still carry with you. And how do you release what you don't need to hold on to anymore? And I think even this new moon gets into existential questions, especially existential questions about what's truly of importance and what matters. Gemini, happy birthday, Gemini. So Mercury is your planet, and it's now in Gemini. So this gives us a boost to the season, certainly after we get to the Gemini new moon later today, and definitely after we get to the Sun-Mercury conjunction later this week. It's been a time, especially the past few months with the retrogrades, it's been more dragging. Sorry, it's my dog. It's been dragging along, but we're going to kind of get that kick, that energy, that movement after the Gemini new moon. This new moon is your personal reset and reboot. If it is your birthday today, happy birthday. Plus or minus a couple of days, it means that you bring this energy and new moon into the coming year. Even if it's not your birthday, it gives you the personal reset and new beginning for your birthday year. This is 2 weeks before a Sagittarius full moon, which will highlight relationships and connection. And I said this in the introduction about how this new moon brings us 3 months after the eclipses and 3 months before the eclipses. And you had eclipses in your career sign of Pisces, your professional life, your public life, but also your sign of home and family. The one, at least not this past 3 months, but 3 months from now, will have a solar eclipse in Virgo. So look to see what's shifting and changing in your household, what new beginnings you're seeing perhaps in your professional life. Saturn has since moved away and it's gone into your 11th house, your 11th sign. So even as you start this time of your birthday season, or even if you are Gemini rising, it brings you the energy of new beginnings. But it's also a reminder to think about the future. Saturn in your 11th. What sort of goals, what sort of hopes, what sort of dreams you're trying to work now towards. Saturn the 11th could also create more of a worldly vision, a sense of connection to the world, your place in the world, social issues, social causes. And the 11th is also, on a very day-to-day level, our friends, our community. And so this could be a new moon where it is about you and it's about new beginnings, but also for you to reach out towards your friends and your community, because you actually might find a lot of support in that part of your life over the next 4 weeks. Cancer. So the moon is your planet, and the moon is traveling between Gemini, I was Taurus this morning, Gemini all the way to Leo at the end of this week. So for you, Gemini is something called your 12th sign. So you just had this new moon, or you will have this new moon later tonight in your 12th sign. So this is the new moon that precedes your birthday season. I realize we're about 4 weeks until your birthday season, or if you're a Cancer rising, the season that reanimates your personal astrology. When the sun goes into Cancer, we even have a Cancer new moon 4 weeks from now. The role of the 12th is to bring you to the end of your personal calendar, or if we use the visual of a space, the 12th is like the 12th room. The 12th room is not a physical room. You can't see it. It has to be revealed to you. I know that sounds a little bit esoteric and perhaps even a little bit mystical, but the role of the 12th room is to take us beyond this world. Translation, the next 4 weeks is a time to go beyond this world. It is to quite literally rest and to dream and to leave this world through sleep and rest. But the role of the 12th is to open up our eyes to our larger world, our more spiritual connections, for example. But on a simple day-to-day level, it's also a time to come to the end of your personal calendar where you can release and let go. This new moon, it highlights both Mercury and Jupiter in the 12th. Jupiter loves being in the 12th. So use the next 4 weeks to have a very positive and healthy attitude towards releasing the things that you don't want to take with you into the next 4 weeks. You don't need to be a Scorpio about it. You don't need to like throw things into the fire or anything. It's just to sort of make those simple agreements with yourself. Like, I'm not going to bring this into my next year when we have the new moon in Cancer, or even the sun crossing into Cancer around the 20th or 21st of June. And maybe it's a time where part of this work is like to meditate over the next 4 weeks, or to use the Jupiter energy to help you find answers. This thing about Jupiter in the 12th, the answers don't come from a book. They don't come from outside of us. They come from within, and they come from our deepest internal connections. This new moon also pulls upon Saturn newly in Aries. It's a big time to be a Cancer because you've got Saturn has just entered your career sign, and so you'll starting this process over the next few years of answering a simple question. What do you want to be when you grow up? Cancer. But it is a big shift in your personal astrology, one that plays off of the recent solar eclipse that we had back on March 29th. And maybe, with some of these bigger changes in your life, you need the energy of the 12th to rest, to recuperate, but also to really feel into and meditate and intuit what's really of important for you and what you want to bring with you into the next phase and chapter of your life. Leo, so the moon is your planet, and not the moon is your planet, the sun's your planet. The sun is your planet, and the sun is now in Gemini. We just had a Gemini new moon, or we will have a Gemini new moon later tonight as I record this. And Gemini for you is something called your 11th sign. When you get to this time of year, the sun is nearly to the end of one cycle. One cycle is your birthday season if you're a Leo sun, or the sun crossing into Leo, crossing into your first around the 22nd of July, 23rd, 22nd of July. So this is a time for you, especially over the next 4 weeks, to vision, to hope, to dream, to plan, to come up with the type of year, ideally, I realize we can't control everything, but ideally the type of year that you want to create going forward. On a day-to-day level, the role of the 11th is also a space for us to connect to our friends, our community, to get involved with groups, social issues, and social causes. This new moon plays upon both Mercury and Jupiter in this space. Jupiter, typically we want more of things wherever Jupiter is, and perhaps it's worth reflecting on the past year where, how have you grown your social connection? How have you expanded your world? How have you opened up your eyes to bigger social issues and social causes? Jupiter will leave this space on June 9th, but that said, it's really a time to nourish, to grow, to connect, to spend time with friends, allies, and community, especially over the next 4 weeks. This new moon does get support from Saturn newly in Aries, and Aries is something called your 9th sign. And over the next few years, it's like you've come out of this really intensive time with Saturn in the 8th, and it's to really start to figure out, what do you believe in? What do you stand for? What do you think is true? Saturn in the 9th gets very existential. It gets very much, and I need to find answers. I need to find my place in the world. But I'm sort of saying this to plant some seeds because we're going to start, kind of keep coming back to them as we go throughout the coming years together. But that said, as you start to really figure out or start to ask these bigger questions, don't forget the Gemini New Moon is to help you to vision and to open up your options for the future. Virgo. So Mercury is your planet, and Mercury is finally in Gemini. I say finally because with the Mercury retrograde in March, and then Mercury got back into Taurus, and got back into Aries, and then it got into Taurus, and so it's just in Taurus, Mercury typically doesn't move as fast and quickly as Mercury would like to do, especially when it's in Gemini. And Mercury is your ruling planet, so it says that on a very simple level, the next couple of weeks is to find curiosity. It's to open up your ideas and options. Typical Virgo, it's an analytical. It's the analytical side. It's the intuitive and analytical side of Gemini. Both Gemini and Virgo are ruled by Mercury. And so this is a time for, because Gemini is your 10th sign, for you to focus on your professional life, your career, your goals, your ambitions, your place in the world, a sense of duty and responsibility. Having Mercury or having Gemini as a career sign, and this is something that we'll kind of keep coming back to, don't forget that Uranus is going to start to get into this space on July 7th. It's not to say that every Virgo rising is going to have a career 180 over the next couple of years, but something about your career, your professional life, your relationship with duty and responsibility will begin to shift. Uranus, it's a whole other conversation for another time, but I wanted to say that because Gemini season and even this Gemini new moon is in advance of Uranus going into Gemini on July 7th. So what themes are coming up now? What sort of, how do you sense at all that something is on the horizon for you? Do you feel like something is beginning to shift and change in your professional life? Maybe you thought you were going to go this way, and maybe you're feeling that actually it might be this way. So use this Gemini new moon, and Jupiter also in Gemini, Mercury also in Gemini, to begin to open up your view, your options. Maybe there's this, I really wish I always wanted to do this, even though I'm currently doing this in my professional life. I really want to be a writer. I really want to travel the world. Whatever it is, this is a time for you to open up options. You are getting support from Saturn, but Saturn has entered a space where it's telling Virgo that it's time to make some big changes. I know that that's scary for Virgo because Virgo's like a secret Scorpio. They want to be in control of everything. Sorry, I love you, Virgo. I was raised by a Virgo. But it's a time where Saturn is saying to Virgo, you can't be in control of everything. You need to let go of certain things in order to make space for something new in your life. So perhaps listen to Saturn over the next few weeks. Libra. So Venus is your planet, and Venus is beginning to come to the end of its time in Aries. Next week it will go into Taurus, but for you, Aries is your relationship sign. So we were talking about this because there has been a big focus, especially with the Venus retrograde, Venus leaving Aries, coming back to Aries, taking its time in Aries, and even the Aries solar eclipse that we had on March 29th, where relationships are a major focus at the moment. It is what it is for your life, meaning you might be starting a relationship, you might need to put a lot of energy on an existing relationship, you might feel like you need to end a relationship, or you and a partner are really thinking about making some changes, starting a family, making a move, whatever it is. It is what it is for your life. So it's to really, I'm sure you know, because it's your life, what's the story that's going on in your life at the moment. That said, the Gemini new moon is in something called your ninth. It, on a very simple level, the next 4 weeks might be a lot of travel, a lot of long distance travel, trips, exploration. The next 4 weeks might be philosophical. You're really thinking about what you believe in, what you stand for, what you think is true. You want to not physically get out into the world, but you want to open up the world in general. It's about education, or it's a sense of trying to find your sense of right and wrong. Or it's because we're also talking about relationships, it's to make sure that you and another person, or you and how you communicate with other people, you're both on the same page. Saturn is giving support to this new moon, but Saturn has just gone into your seventh sign of relationships. So the big hand, or sort of the major hand on your personal clock, is now saying that relationships are a priority. It is what it is for your life, but it is the start of something big for Libra. I know I've said this last week, but I can go through the mental list of Libra risings in my head. Marriages, moves, moving house, but these are sort of the events that Saturn and the eclipses typically mark in our lives. But Venus will begin to shift next week. We'll talk more about that next week, but it will go into a space that talks about intimacy, trust, power, and vulnerability. And these are themes that, especially within a relationship, we need vulnerability, we need trust. We need to open up to somebody intimately in our life, otherwise we don't grow. But that said, yes, it's a big time to be a Libra or a Libra rising. Scorpio. So Mars is your planet, and Mars is beginning to come to the last leg of its time in Leo. I think it's going to be at 20 degrees by the time we get to later this week, but it's been a long time in Leo. It's been a long time for you to focus on duties, responsibilities, leadership, your public life, your career, because Mars has been in and out of Leo since the beginning of November. So between now and the middle of June, it's wrapping up its time in a space that it's not going to be for another 2 years, because Mars has a 2-year cycle. So use Mars to continue to push out into the world, to be to take on the right responsibilities, to get noticed and recognized perhaps, or even to set the seeds for Leo season and the Leo new moon. That said, we just had a Gemini new moon. A Gemini is something called your 8th sign. And so the 8th sign is kind of like Scorpio. The 8th sign is a space in our personal astrology where we all have to go. The 8th is where we face ourselves. So we look within. Like, that sounds kind of like a lot like Scorpio, Katie. I know, but it is the time, Gemini season for you, and the Gemini new moon is the time for Scorpio to do that inner examination. As any Scorpio worth his or her salt knows, that a life that is not examined, a life that is not questioned, a life where every day is the same, does not grow. So the next 4 weeks, which is the duration of the lunar month, may test you, push you, and to get you to grow. I know you're like, great. But this new moon gets support from Saturn. This new moon puts you into a space where, on one hand, it is to look at the relationship with your emotional health and wellness, and also your physical health and wellness. For some Scorpios, the 8th is really spending time with a therapist or a counselor or a trusted confidant over the next 4 weeks, but that gives you the ability to really let something go. For some Scorpio or Scorpio risings, it is also to clear things out. The 8th is to clear things out emotionally, but the 6th is to sort of clear things out physically. It is to prioritize your physical health as much as you are prioritizing some sort of emotional work or emotional transformation. It is to focus on projects, to focus on, and even with Saturn newly in Aries, to start major projects, or to really start to change the systems of your life, because ultimately the role of the 6th and the 8th is to create healthy systems. If you need to change diet and fitness, this is a time to do so. If you want to make some personal strides in your own transformation work, this is the time to do so. For some Scorpio risings, it is about financial matters. because the traditional role of the eighth is about benefits, inheritances, finances, and the estate, and maybe it's looking at your own financial health and wellness, and even the things that you can rely upon and call upon. But this new moon, it does talk about Jupiter and spending, and maybe even money coming your way. I know that's not to sort of make any gold-plated promises, but Jupiter can bring in assets and resources during this time. So look for benefits, look for things that can help you and create ease in your life. But don't forget, Saturn is now in your sixth. It's to really start to change the systems of your life and to put things in order and to create healthy new systems. Sagittarius. Sagittarius, so Jupiter is your planet, and it's in the last 2 weeks of its time in Gemini. In general, the time of Jupiter and Gemini for Sag has been about new people entering your life or wanting more connection in your life, because even though you are ruled by Jupiter, wherever Jupiter is, we typically want more out of life. Jupiter in the seventh of relationship wants more social connection. It wants more relationship. Perhaps you have started a relationship, perhaps you've ended a relationship, but it's also a time where you can't do things alone. It's to partner with somebody. It doesn't have to be romantically, but it's to have a sense of partnership and connection in your life. In these last 2 weeks of Jupiter and Gemini, what has shifted and changed since Jupiter first went into Gemini just almost exactly a year ago, so May 25th of 2024. Jupiter will go into Cancer on the 9th, and so this is going to move the energy of your sign over to Cancer for a year until I think it's the end of June of 2026. But it's also going to move your energy of your sign, that it's like the natural progression after relationships. It's intimacy, vulnerability, trust, power, control. A space that typically Jupiter has to get uncomfortable. But Jupiter actually loves Cancer, so Jupiter, does rule your chart, it rules your life. So there is a sense of, this is a time where a lot of growth, a lot of wealth can come into your life. And that wealth isn't necessarily physical wealth, it's emotional, and it's the emotional wealth that we take with us into the spiritual. That said, it's a Gemini new moon, and Gemini is your relationship sign. So this new moon capitalizes on some of the things that have been going on in your life for the last 12 months around relationship. This is a new moon. Anytime you have a Gemini new moon, it says for the next 4 weeks, relationships is time for new beginnings in relationships. So if you want to use this to your advantage, you're not in a relationship, you want to at least create new connection, you can use this new moon. Mercury is there as well. So there's a lot of strength and boost to this space. This new moon gets support from Saturn. Saturn has moved out of your fourth. It will go back there, but it has now gone into your fifth, of a space about taking yourself and taking your talent seriously. It is to, of course, be in relationship or to not feel like we have to do everything alone. But it's also to take yourself and take your talent seriously. And so this might be getting into a time of also like, who am I? And one of the ways in which we discover who we are is through relationship. It is the mirror back to us. But this is a big new moon, and it presages Uranus going into Gemini on July 7th. Another conversation for another time, but this is sort of like, hey, get ready, Sagittarius, your life is going to change, because Uranus is going to bring the energy of transformation, awakenings, and doing things very differently to your relationship sign. Capricorn, so Saturn is your planet, and last week it went into Aries. So this is a new time and new hour for you, and don't forget to sort of use this energy like it's not to be the fate of astrology. It's now, this is pointing towards home and family. Wherever Saturn is, even though it rules you, your Saturn sun or Capricorn sun, or it rules your chart, your Capricorn rising, that area of your life takes priority. And so we go through these big arcs, especially a Capricorn or Capricorn rising. Your life maps out through big arcs. You have every 3 years, 2, 3 years, Saturn goes into a new sign. And so now the focus is on home and family. And it's going to, of course, be different, depending on your age and depending on your circumstance. But it could be one of the following things. It's time to put down roots. You're younger, you're thinking about settling down. That could be traditionally or non-traditionally. Non-traditionally in the sense of it's not about traditionally settling down. It's about sort of feeling like you can put down roots in your life, that you can sort of create a sense of home and stability, even if it's within yourself. Saturn through this space for somebody else could be the start of a relationship, the start of a family. If it's not that, it could be a time when your family needs a priority or needs priority in your life. Maybe your parents are older, for example. For some, it's to really focus on the physicality of home, where is home and who is home, but also the emotionality of where is home and who is home. It is not uncommon when Saturn goes through the space, which it will until the beginning of 2028, that there's a major move. Or it's a time where you sort of recommit to where you are at. These are not moves down the block. If there is a move, it's typically a move that really reflects this new time, a new chapter in your life. A Capricorn is sort of hardwired, or even a Capricorn rising is hardwired to put everybody else at first, and to really work towards bigger goals. But when Saturn is in the fourth, it's like, don't forget the things that are truly important. Don't forget the things that are actually going to fill your cup, that are actually going to be the memories of your life and the support for your life. It's not all about work. It's not all about these sort of grand ambitions that you have. That said, we just had a Gemini new moon. This new moon is in your sixth. Very surface level, the role of the six is to get you to really get into the details of your day-to-day life. Like, what's your routine? Like, how do you get up and go to do your schedule? Like, is everything a mess, or is things in order? For some, the role of the six, especially over the next 4 weeks, is through the lens of health and wellness. You need to take care of yourself. Maybe you've been putting a lot of things in the back burner, and this is a new moon to say, no, it's a time to really focus on your physical health and wellness. You have Jupiter in the space. You'll have Jupiter in the space only for a couple more weeks. So Jupiter, typically, it helps to give protection. It helps to give a sense of like wanting to create healthy structures, healthy new futures. Jupiter has been here since May 25th of 2024, but this has been a time to use, over the last year, to use Jupiter to make healthy new beginnings in your health and wellness. The new moon capitalizes on Jupiter in this space. And health isn't just physical. Health is emotional. Health is spiritual. Health is sort of holistic. And maybe with Saturn now in the fourth, it sort of turns the focus towards a different hemisphere of your life, and one where it's like don't always put everything on your shoulders, Capricorn. Ask for help. Make sure that you're really tending to the roots and foundation of your life. And if you're looking at your day-to-day life and be like, maybe I need to restructure, or maybe I need to reprioritize things that are more in the support for my health and wellness. But that new moon it's actually picking up support from Saturn, and it's not just about the new beginnings in your life. It's about bringing these new beginnings to every part of your day-to-day life. Aquarius. So Saturn is your planet. Saturn has just changed signs as of the 24th, and it's now in Aries. So the energy of your personal astrology, whether you are an Aquarius sun or Aquarius rising, is now pointing towards your third sign. There's a couple of ways in which we can look at that. It says over the next couple of years, there's a big focus on your voice. Speaking up. I don't mean speaking up to saying whatever comes to your mouth, but like actually saying whatever is inside of you. You could be a writer and now you're publishing a manuscript, or you're writing a manuscript. You could be putting this towards public speaking over the next couple of years. Saturn, wherever Saturn is, even though Saturn rules you, it's a priority. So maybe you are now prioritizing writing, speaking, communication. Maybe you're taking more classes. Maybe there's a curiosity. Maybe you are teaching the class because it is time to be an authority. The Gemini new moon is in something called your fifth, and Gemini, like you're both air signs. And so this is a new moon that says that over the next 4 weeks, it's a time for you to really focus on the things that light you up and give you joy and give you passion. The fifth, I love the fifth because the fifth is the sign that comes before the sixth, and the sixth is work and projects. Well, play and joy and fun is the room next door to the sixth. And it's a reminder that we need to make sure that we are doing what we love, or that the things that we have to do on a day-to-day level, our duties and responsibilities, are infused with our love, our passion, and our joy. I know in a perfect world, but the astrology is a framework for us to put our lives in balance and for us to discover more and to grow throughout our life. For some Aquariuses, this is a lunar month that puts the focus on children, both literal children, children in general, or the things that are like children. The children is when we take the things, the best parts of ourselves, and we put that into something. It could be a very creative next 4 weeks. And this is not going to be for everybody, but I've noticed this, especially in the charts of artists, singers, writers, that when there's this connection between the fifth and the third, this is really strong creative voice. And you could be like, I am not creative, Katie, but don't forget that there's something inside of you that's uniquely yours. There's only one you in all of the universe, Aquarius. So use the next 4 weeks to reconnect with whatever it is that makes you you. There is a connection between this new moon and Saturn newly in Aries. So if there's something that you want to share, to teach, to learn, to discover, if you sometimes doubt, like maybe I don't know enough, maybe you need that shot of confidence of Gemini new moon in your fifth to help you to believe in your voice, or believe in what you have to say, or believe that you actually know what you were talking about. But in general, it's probably going to be a very busy time the next few weeks, and a lot of movement, a lot of travel, but perhaps the things that are actually going to feed you and nourish you for this new cycle in your life. Pisces. Pisces. So Jupiter is your planet, and Jupiter has got 2 more weeks left in Gemini. So the last year, literally almost exactly a year, Jupiter has been in Gemini, your sign of home and family and roots and foundation. And so every year Jupiter changes signs. And so almost like a clock, it points to a new sign over the arc of almost 12 years. So this has been the time over the past year to focus on your family, to focus on your home. You're like, I don't have family, but to find a sense of connection and nourishment in that area, even if we do not have or even have a connection with our blood family, is to create a sense of family. Where is home and who is home? And Jupiter has been trying to get you to answer that over the last year. So where is home? Who is home? Jupiter, when it goes into Cancer, it will move the energy of you over to the fifth sign. So you will go into another year chapter that takes you into the end of June 2026 that is focused on your creative talents, your gifts, your abilities, your identity, and spending more time doing the things that you love, that light you up and give you joy and give you pleasure. I know, sounds lovely. This Gemini new moon capitalizes on a lot of the themes and a lot of the experiences that have happened over the last year. For some Pisces, it has been about a move. You've moved, or you have been thinking about a move, but that move is also deeply symbolic. For some Pisces, it's a time to get back to what actually supports your life and nourishes your life. So this new moon is a focal point for that sort of larger chapter of energy. And maybe you see a new beginning, or you see a move, or you see something around home and family, or perhaps you come to the answer of like, where is home and who is home when Jupiter, or when we have this new moon. Even when Jupiter moves out of this part of your chart on on June 7th, you still had that sort of container of time around the new moon. I will say, because you had a lunar eclipse, no, wait, yes, we had a lunar eclipse in your sign. No, you had there was a lunar eclipse back on September 17th of last year. But there will be, this is one thing, there will be a lunar eclipse in Pisces on September 7th. Hey, you're a Pisces or a Pisces rising. So this new moon period and also June brings you 3 months before that lunar eclipse in Pisces, but also 3 months before that solar eclipse in Virgo, your relationship sign, on September 21st. If it is possible that you see the eclipse in June, it's a new beginning in your life, it's a new relationship, it's a change in relationship, and the change could be focused on your home environment, your living situation in June. Could be something else, but this is just to sort of for you to know, Pisces, that June's a turning point and crossroads, and it's in general a bigger time of change and transition, even now that Saturn is out of Pisces, and Saturn is getting support from this new moon, and this new moon is in your sign of money, income, material stability, security, property, assets. And maybe it's you're buying a home, or maybe you're setting up household, or maybe you're really thinking more on a deeper level, like what's truly of value, what's truly of important, and who do I want in this space with me. So there you go. That is your look at the astrology of May 26th through June 1st, 2025. I appreciate you all, and it's a holiday, but if you are my Tuesday club, I know we are an international audience, I appreciate you all, and always let me know where you're watching from. You can find me online at empoweringastrology.com. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Spotify, I'm on YouTube. You can book a consultation with me. I love using Saturn to help people to find their map and to really understand the space of their life. So you can book a consultation with me, empoweringastrology.com. So I will see you all next week, and we'll be back in our regular location. So until then, bye-bye.